Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to get started here. I will call the House Education Committee meeting to order. Find my own agenda. All right, a couple of housekeeping items, and these apply to both our Education Committee members as well as to our friends who are online and those who are in the room. To you, been a little bit of question and on some procedural matters before the committee, so I just kind of wanted to clarify this. I talked about this in our initial kickoff meeting for the year, but a couple things. So bills that are assigned to subcommittee is the time and the place for public comment to be made on those bills. And so that's the point where we hope for and encourage comment from the public. And if you need Zoom information or access, you can find that through my assistant if you will look her up online. Secondly, from a posture standpoint that we've talked about before, public comment will be heard in subcommittee, and obviously the bill debated before that subcommittee. Should that move on and we have a hearing before the full committee, that would be the time that we would take comment and discussion from the committee. Then when a bill has had that hearing and is put on the agenda for a vote, my prerogative and my posture would be that is the time where we will move towards action on that bill, and we'll have debate amongst the committee. So there's been some question. I just kind of wanted to put that out there for future reference. So I will tell you this, we're in full committee now. So we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock and we've got a lot of business to attend to. So with that, we're going to get rolling, and Representative Laricchia, if you would, open us in a word of prayer.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. God, thank you for this day. God, thank you for how you bless us. Lord, just guide and protect us during this time as we make decisions that would be best for this state, but would ultimately bring glory to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Laricchia. All right, members of the committee. Up first will be Representative Gamble. Representative, if you'll join us down here at the podium. And if you will confirm the LC number that we are working off of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be with you all today. I'm working off of LC 490729, and that's House Resolution 650. Is that what
yes,
we've got? Okay, good. Well, good morning. It's great to be with you today. And I have a resolution that I think has the potential to help a lot of students throughout our state as they learn to read, which, as you all know, is foundational in the educational process. I want to start on the outset, and I told you all this last year when I came, and I think it was the civics education bill, but my first grade teacher, Sharon Vosberg in Cartersville at Cartersville City Schools, she taught me to read, and she's a wonderful lady. She's still teaching school there. She retired and she's still working part-time, but she's a great lady, and I wouldn't be able to read today if it wasn't for her. And of course, I'm always mindful of that. So I just wanted to mention that. Literacy is very important, and I'm joined today with by Dr. Amy Sharma, who's the Executive Director for Science for Georgia. A few months ago, I was invited to attend one of their meetings, and Representative Evans and I were there, and there were several other legislators there that day as well. And Science for Georgia was talking about, how we teach science and how we if we don't get reading right, then we don't have the ability to teach science. And of course, that applies to really everything. Y'all know one of my big passions is career technical and agricultural education. And so many times I would hear employers talk about students struggling with just reading instruction manuals and things like that. So it's such a foundational part of the education process. And so this bill would basically create a literacy instruction study committee And I can get into the nuts and bolts of that in a minute. I also wanted to mention that Tina Ingberg is here from Decoding Dyslexia of Georgia, Jessica Woltgen from Gears, Neil Dodell from Literacy for All, and Nicole Vela from the Reading League of Georgia. And they all are very appreciative of this as well. So Dr. Sharma, if you want to share just briefly from your perspective about the importance of literacy.
All right. Thank you all for having me here today. I'm really honored to be here talking about literacy, which is very important. Just a quick rundown. Science for Georgia is a nonprofit dedicated to connecting science to society. We really want to see science used appropriately in policy and programs. And that means that pragmatically, we look for evidence-based best practices and inflection points. So where a big change can have a really high impact in a positive direction. I'm also here today as a mother of 3 children in the Atlanta public school system. So the last 2 years have been interesting. And so as a scientist and a parent, I'm really believing that we're at a point in time where we can try something new as we come out of this pandemic. So I'm going to lay out how I got here, what's going on in Georgia right now. I'll give you a crash course on evidence-based literacy instruction, and then what we're trying to do with this resolution. If you remember nothing else from today, please remember that only 1/3 of Georgia's 4th graders can read proficiently, and that means 2/3 of them do not have the skills to meet Georgia's workforce needs. This does not require a fancy pants rocket science intervention. We have the tools to enable all kids to be able to be literate. So we really need to uplift and identify and support the many programs that are already happening around the state right now. A year ago today, I had an intern who wanted to make sure all kids would read. So that launched a search for evidence-based best practices and inflection points. And that the connections we made and all the things we learned have led us to host an education and workforce speaker series. It was attended by education experts, business leaders, and policymakers, including Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan. That was followed by this roundtable that Representative Gamble and Evans attended. And that roundtable led to 20 people saying we really need to focus on getting kids literate, which means we need to focus on evidence-based literacy instruction. Reading proficiently has been linked to a host of outcomes. Students who cannot read proficiently at the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely than their proficient counterparts to drop out of high school and experience long-term behavioral and mental health issues. This means that those who aren't reading proficiently are more likely to end up in jail or in low-wage jobs and propagate the negative cycle into the next generation. This is not unknown. Malcolm Mitchell is here today. We're all taking pictures with his Super Bowl ring, even though it was for the wrong team. And they have the same facts on their website. So only 1/3 of Georgia 4th graders can read proficiently, meaning they need to be able to read and comprehend what they read. So comprehending is the critical piece here because this enables students to read to learn. And that skill sets them up for life success. This is why those that aren't proficient are more likely to drop out. When they cannot independently gain knowledge, school becomes increasingly frustrating, and no one likes to be in situations where they fail. According to the Southern Regional Education Board, 30% of the work activities could be automated in the state by 2025. That's 3 years away. And 2/3 of Georgia workers have a high school diploma or less. So as the workforce needs rapidly change, people do not need 4-year degrees, but they need to be able to upskill and reskill. And that means that they need to be able to read. All right, this seems like a lot of gloom and doom, but the good news is there's over 50 years of research on how to successfully educate children in literacy, and we can science this. Science has shown that evidence-based literacy instruction improves outcomes, can be taught by teachers, is really the only effective method for those with a learning disability, and that a large majority of those learning this way do not need expensive, time-consuming interventions. So essentially, if we do it right the first time, every child except those with severe cognitive difficulties can become a fluent reader. Recently, I sat in on evidence-based training, and one teacher remarked how the new techniques she had just learned pulled an unmotivated first grader from struggling to on level in just 2 months. All right, so what is evidence-based literacy? If you want a more detailed analysis of this, I recommend you reach out to Dr. Caitlin Dooley, the Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, or Dr. Teresa Magpuri, the Executive Director of the Deal Center. This is their jam, and Georgia is super lucky to have them in these positions. There's two components, like I said, being able to read the words and then understanding the words, and you have to be able to do both. So, have you ever watched a child learn to talk? First, they make sounds, then they turn those sounds into words, and then they turn those words into sentences. And at the same time, they're learning what those words mean. That way, when they start talking, they don't produce word salad, but comprehensible sentences. I know as a parent, we feel that they stop at no, but the other day, my kids talked about the structural integrity of their marble maze, so I feel like there's hope. The process is the same when we learn to read. First, people learn letter sounds, and then groups of letter sounds, and then they turn those sound groups into words. And then they turn those words into sentences. And at the same time, you have to learn what those words mean. They have to be exposed over and over to words in context by being talked to and read to and reading themselves. So up to third grade, instructional focus makes sure kids build up enough mental literacy muscle that they can easily read through a text without stumbling, and they have enough vocabulary that they know what the words mean. Thus, by fourth grade, when they use their literacy muscle, it's to interpret and learn from the text, not to spend time on reading it. So I am an academic researcher, and I read a lot of academic papers, and they are on a whole terribly written. I usually spend so much time deciphering what's in the text that I don't have any brain space left over to comprehend what the text was trying to tell me. There's a parallel to reading proficiency. Making sure kids are fluent readers means they can easily sound out the words and they know what those words mean. So then they have plenty of leftover brain space to comprehend. This way, when a fourth grader reads a book on the space shuttle and they encounter the word fuselage, which they have probably never seen before, they can easily sound the word out, read the helpful parenthetical definition, and go, oh, the place where the crew lives and works. And then those are all words that they know, right? So they can know it and move on. And when someone asks them about the book, they can say space shuttles take people into space where the crew can live and work and do experiments. And they don't say, I don't know, because while they might have read every word in the book, it took so much energy to stumble through the words that they couldn't comprehend it. All right, so now you know what's going on with evidence-based literacy. What's happening in Georgia? Right now, there are many, 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 many programs, right? So name a few: DFACS, DOE, TCSG, USG, Deal Center, Library, Georgia Family Connection Partnership, Cox Campus, Reach Out and Read, Decoding for Dyslexia, Literacy for All, Learn for Life, Share the Magic, Voices for Children, Gears, Leap Year, Urban League, and I missed like 100 there. So these people have all been working tirelessly on literacy. I cannot stress enough how much they care very deeply about this and how hard they've been working. But we still only have 30% of kids that can read. So what's going on here? One, there's a ton of reading curriculums out there. Some are based on evidence-based literacy, some are based on non-corroborated theories. Two, Georgia lacks guardrails, so teaching institutions have to be broad and not deep with their pre-service training. At the same time, because of this, the DOE has to support everything. So again, they have to be broad, not deep in their support, which is leading to kind of this mess. And as I said, we can all read proficiently, right? So how do we move that needle from 30% to 60% and then 90%? It's complicated, but it's not impossible, right? We just need to build a birth to test literacy support system. I'm sure we can do that in the next 10 minutes. We on it, guys? All right, seriously, we can do this. First, we need to define what evidence-based literacy means and the impact of literacy on Georgia's economic workforce. Second, we need to understand fully the scope and the scale of all the efforts that are already underway. You heard me name off all those programs. They all have their own missions. Sometimes those overlap, sometimes there's gaps. For example, when I asked, how do we get to more literate communities? First, I was directed to DOE, and then to TCSG, and then to GFCP, and then back to DOE. Third, we need to understand how to offer supports to get these programs working together flexibly. Everyone I talked to repeatedly stressed how each locality has their own needs. Lockstep solutions will not work. Atlanta is definitely not Valdosta, is not Tifton. We also need to ensure flexibility as improved practices emerge. Lots of people were concerned that we don't want to make this just another educational fad. And fourth, we need to shake the bag. We really, really have so much going on, and we need to see the whole network from a new perspective. So there we go. Georgia doesn't have a 21st century workforce without literate citizens. We have the tools and the knowledge to enable all Georgians to be literate. We also have a lot of great pieces of the puzzle to do this, but we need to understand what's there so we can support, expand, and enhance it. We can create literate communities, becoming adults who can support their children in literacy and support themselves as members of the 21st century workforce. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for that outline, and I appreciate it. And so with that, you know, we've all heard the great man that is and was Johnny Isaacson talk about having friends and future friends. And, you know, 30 days ago, my future friend it was Malcolm Mitchell, and I didn't know that he was going to walk into my life in a meeting with the speaker. And so if you don't mind swapping seats with him for a moment, Malcolm, if you'll come up. So members of the committee, after hearing Malcolm speak before, and then after sitting in a meeting with he and the speaker, there's a very, very powerful story that he is going to talk to us about and present around literacy and why what Representative Gamble is doing matters. And so, Malcolm, on behalf of the committee, welcome and thank you for being here, and the floor and the microphone are yours.
Thank all of you for having me. This is amazing, and I appreciate it. And hopefully I can share my perspective and articulate it in a way that maybe broadens all of our perception of kids struggling with literacy. There's a farmer walking towards his chicken coop when he stumbled upon a misplaced egg. Assuming the egg somehow crept out of the coop, he picks it up, walks it back over to the chicken coop with the rest of the eggs, and places it under a hen. A few days go by, the eggs begin to hatch. Out comes a chicken, out comes another chicken, but out of the misplaced egg comes an eagle. Now, the eagle doesn't recognize he's an eagle, so he behaves just like everyone else in his environment. The eagle behaves like a chicken. He pecks the ground looking for seeds. He flaps his wings to jump instead of fly. After a few months, the eagle feels this deep longing for something more, that he has greater purpose, that something else inside of him is special, but he doesn't really know exactly what that is. All he knows is life as a chicken. On a random day, a shadow is overcast on the coop. All the chickens run inside, but this eagle looks up and he's amazed by what he sees. He sees another eagle flying through the sky. Now, our misplaced eagle doesn't have a mirror, so he doesn't realize this eagle looks exactly like him. But what he does realize is that he has the potential to do much more because life has more to offer than flapping his wings just to jump in the chicken coop. He's inspired. So the eagle begins to try to fly, and he fails at first, but he's so inspired, he continues to try. And one day, the wind catches beneath his wings, and he soars from the chicken coop and goes on to reach his full potential. I believe, based on my personal experience and my perception, that House Resolution 650 can be that spark needed to get children reading to a better future. Growing up in Valdosta, Georgia, I was no different than any other child. I played sports and I didn't fully understand the importance of an education. It's when I got to the University of Georgia on an athletic scholarship that I had a moment to pause, look around and think deeply about the choices I had made. And what I realized was if I gave my brain the same amount of attention I gave my body as an athlete, it would take me to similar places. Now, this was a revelation for me, a revelation for me, because in my community, there were no doctors, there were no lawyers, there were no successful entrepreneurs, there were no examples of literacy representing a brighter future. So what do our children believe today? And it is my hope that we can continue to strive to be as that soaring eagle was for that misplaced eagle, that spark needed to get kids moving in the right direction. Here's what we know. And you so beautifully articulated all those stats. I won't butcher them by trying to repeat it. But I will say what we do know is that right now kids aren't reading to a better future. And there's something that we could do about it. We could be that spark. We could move our state forward. In 2016, once I graduated from the University of Georgia, I created Share the Magic Foundation, and we aim to introduce book ownership and the active benefits of being a reader to communities, to under-resourced communities. Thus far, we've served over 350,000 students in 6 years. A majority of those students are here in our state, the state that I love and the state that I hope to continue to serve. I'm here today because I really want our children reading to a better future. And I think this moment represents that spark that'll get us going down the path to get kids a brighter future. If you cannot read, you cannot succeed. You cannot be productive. I've seen it from every angle. I grew up as a poor boy in Georgia, and thankfully, through God, I've been blessed with tremendous opportunities. If I had a choice to trade the Super Bowl ring for a literate brain, it's no competition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Malcolm, for being here and for sharing that with us. And again, as I said, 30 days ago, this is a man that was a future friend, and now I consider him a friend and very proud of what you're doing. And personally, I wish you nothing but the best in those endeavors, and I hope you'll maybe one day be back before this committee or even on this committee. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. At this time, I'd look to any members of the committee for comments or questions. Representative Wade, we can go ahead. We can get to that in a minute too.
Okay. Well, first, I just wanted to ask this question. When you reference 350,000 students and the majority of those in Georgia since 2016, are you partnering directly through the school systems in certain communities, or just I want to learn more about how you've been able to do that, and then I want to ask a question of the bill's author in a little bit. But that's my first question.
We partner with school systems, community leaders, and isolated teachers to bring books to communities and some of our programming.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Malcolm, when you make a friend of a Georgia Tech graduate here, you have really done something good. Yes. So I am glad to
I'm working on them.
Hear that. And I want to point out a couple of things, and one of them to you, Malcolm. And I appreciate the last statement you made about trading your ring for literacy. That ring changed your life, I'm sure, but literacy will change it much more. My experience as a school superintendent over my education career, I saw and participated in helping many, many people learn to read, not only just my family, my own children, but many of the community's children. And so, Representative Gamble, I commend you on this thought, this direction, this light you're shining on maybe the most valuable thing we do in education, and that is beginning with those young ones and getting them on grade level to read. Now, what I'd like to do and ask you this question when this committee completes its task would be the impact that EIP is having and how this could impact EIP in our state of Georgia, which is a valuable program. And many, if not all of our school systems use EIP. But I would hope that through your results that we would be able to impact our EIP teaching in some form.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Irwin. Representative Evans.
Thank you so much, Representative Gamble, for bringing this bill. And Mr. Mitchell, it's such a pleasure to meet you, and I can't wait to shake your hand in person. Thank you so much for your inspiring story. And I too have experienced the power of reading, and it has changed my life. And I had a very, very different situation than you did, but you spoke so eloquently. So I want to thank you so much. And I do have a quick question to you. What is EIP?
EIP is the early intervention program that school systems use, Representative. So it's a very valuable program. I've seen many of them in this room that I think have been involved with it and seeing it. So, and we can talk offline about it too.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to say I'm very excited about the study committee. And at some point, I know that Dr. Sharma has talked with a lot of folks too. And I do think we might have an amendment about adding a person or two to the study committee. And I'll be ready to suggest that when the time is appropriate.
When the time's appropriate, we'll work on the amendment.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Representative Evans. Representative Howard, is that you?
Yes.
Microphone is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry I ran late coming in, but I think I got enough information. I heard enough to see what we're going at here, and to our representative over there. Back in 2019, myself and Representative Nix started the bill "Too Young to Suspend" was the capture of the bill, whereas we were working on trying to come up with ideas and programs of kids being suspended and why they were being suspended. And a lot of times, I think you might have mentioned that in your comments, kids act out, when they have hearing problems or vision problems or something, and they don't tell you what the issue is. And when I look at what this study committee, I think this is really good. We need to do everything we can to make sure our kids pre-K to third grade are in the early intervention programs, to make sure that they are able to have the resources needed, because they won't tell you sometime that I can't see the board, or I can't read the book, or I can't read, they just begin to act out too. And so I support everything that we can do for our kids in that area. So thank you for bringing this, and look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you, Representative Howard. Seeing no other questions, Vice Chairman Irwin, excuse me, sorry. Representative Carter, you're recognized online. Sorry.
Good morning. Thank you. I want to say thank you so much for bringing this resolution. Thank you, young man, for sharing your testimony, because this is definitely something that I've seen over the years with athletes, and just in general, ensuring that individuals can read. So I think the only thing for me is the makeup and ensuring that there are educators, on the study committee. But I definitely thank you. And I know that Georgia has been working really, really hard to ensure that our students are reading by grade level. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carter. Vice Chairman Irwin, you're recognized for a motion.
If this is the correct time, I would motion for due pass of this resolution.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second that this bill do pass. We'll move to the discussion period, and Representative Wade, you're recognized for an amendment.
All right, I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of feedback. I appreciate Representative Evans and Representative Carter having that. Would the author of the bill be amenable to us adding two small changes, really addition? Instead of having a 7-member non-legislative, increase that by 2 and add the language, an individual who represents a not-for-profit entity involved in Georgia and national literacy efforts. And then I think it's extremely crucial that we have a classroom teacher specializing in literacy. So, and the final of that would be, and a classroom teacher specializing in literacy. That would be on page 3, section 2.
So Representative Wade, on line 37,
That's
you're
right.
proposing that we change 7 to 9.
Yep.
And then on line
42.
41, we would strike the second word "and."
Yes, that's right.
On line 42, after complex systems, we would add a comma, and you're proposing the amendment to include language that would read,
An individual who represents a not-for-profit entity involved in Georgia and national literacy efforts, comma, and a classroom teacher specializing in literacy, period.
and I believe that language is in the folder for the members to review. Is that correct?
I believe that is the
Or
case.
we have a copy here for everyone. So are there questions on that language while we pass this out? And Representative Evans, did you have a comment on this language? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I like the bill as well, and similar to the speaker, I too have grown up in a similar situation with just in urban Atlanta. So since we're making adjustments or a possible amendment, I'm just thinking when you're talking about helping children improve their reading, what do you guys think about a parent from one of these places? Because a parent really understands more so than anything what are the limiting factors in their community that are limiting them from reading.
So I'm going to direct your question to Legislative Counsel and ask, in the language that is presented with a representative from each, starting on line 38, the Department of Early Care and Learning, is there anything that would prohibit that language from those organizations from choosing a parent? Does it stipulate that it would have to be an employee of any of those systems, or could they so choose their designee? To Representative Mainer's question.
That's a question I don't know that we have faced before. I will say my gut reaction to the question is that it would be someone who would represent each of those agencies in an official capacity, as opposed to an agency just designating, perhaps a parent that they become aware of. I do think there should be some official relationship between the agency and the designee that they send.
Thank you. Representative Wade.
I appreciate Representative Mainer's thoughts and comments. One thing that I think that, since this is a resolution for a study committee, that the author of the committee, I think we could encourage that this board, not to exclude a parent as a member, but to, I guess, keep it at a number of 9, that the expectation is that group, when they're going through this study committee process, that it's imperative that they include multiple parents from lots of parts of the state to get input as to what are the barriers that they're experiencing in their community. I mean, it could be a myriad of things, and your situation in an urban setting versus Malcolm's situation in Valdosta, there's probably nuanced differences, right? Parents, I think, would be an important part. This would not limit engaging parents in the study committee process. Is that true?
Yeah, and I would comment there to Vice Chairman Irwin's point that there's a really good chance that the members of this study committee are parents, and I would hope that the organizations outlined and involved in this would look to, if it is indeed to our legislative council's input, they would look to those employees in their own systems who could support that. Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was kind of along the lines of what you're talking about now. I was curious if we are limited in a House study committee to the number of members. You know, there's cost associated with them being official members. And most of these groups that are passionate and nonprofits that are interested in this are going to come to your committee hearing anyway. Teachers are welcome, whether they're in from, literacy specifically or not. That was just kind of a thought that was on my mind. There could be a limit to the number. There could be a limit that it only be House members. But you're not limited to who you can invite to those committee hearings every time you have them.
Very good point. With all due respect to the lights that are on right now, we really need to move on. So there is a motion for the Wade amendment to be added, and I believe the language is before us all. Is there a second on the Wade amendment? There is a second. All those in favor of the Wade amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted. Now we have a motion and a second that House Resolution 650 LC 490729 do pass as amended by the committee. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carries and this bill has passed. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Representative Thomas, do we have everything we need from you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Committee members, you're going to have to bear with us for a few minutes. And you're going to have to take sworn testimony by go ahead, by Representative Thomas, by Legislative Council, and by myself. This is probably going to be the most complicated bill I'm ever going to attempt to pass, simply procedurally. Okay? We are not pulling wool over anyone's eyes. I have a couple of statements to make to that point, but let me begin by saying that there was a honest to goodness mistake, and then there was a second, as only the comedy of errors would allow, a second absolute mistake made. To our friends online who are watching and to those that are in the audience, if you can find this substitute version, you're a better person than I am. That is not by design, and I apologize. This should be a very simple cleanup language bill, but we are going to procedurally have a difficult time getting this done, and I'm going to try my best to make sure I don't screw it up. So there were two charter school bills awaiting backing, and the wrong one was actually grabbed and signed. So Representative Thomas is going to present a substitute about some true language, and then the other bill. We all know since the pandemic has begun that Georgia schools have moved to some form of virtual learning, and it's been brought to my attention that some of our assumptions about how operational funds may not reflect certain realities that we're seeing play out across the state, particularly as it relates to the recruitment and retention of virtual teachers. I'm told by our state virtual schools that they're losing certified teachers in significant numbers due to other schools being far more competitive financially. The bill before you is a charter school cleanup that, again, Representative Thomas is going to present. While it does not deal with virtual funding, as the caption states, we're still looking at a solution for virtual funding that the committee may revisit under a different bill at a later time. With all that said, Representative Thomas, the microphone is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Today, we're going to make very sure everybody's working off the same substitute. You should be looking at LC 490831S. So I just want to make
We're going to
sure.
give pause and make sure, and this is
31S. 0831S.
Hold on. Bear with
Okay.
me.
No
It helps
problem.
It helps when the chairman has a copy. Let's try that again. You're here on HB 1215, correct?
That is
And that
correct.
LC number again is?
490831S.
Everybody good now? Thank you.
Okay, so this is a cleanup bill. It refines the state charter school definition, which is done in section 1. It prevents local districts from prohibiting students from transferring to charter schools during the school year. That would be section 2. And it addresses a loophole in the local charter funding calculation. That's section 3. So we'll begin by talking about section 1. Basically, what it's doing is it refines the Georgia charter school definition to better align it with the federal charter school definition. It reflects what's already utilized in practice within the Department of Education for grant distribution purposes. Charter schools must already meet the criteria outlined in section 1 to be eligible to receive federal charter school program grants. The change is actually needed because charter schools are sometimes conflated with other school options like college and career academies and charter system schools. And sometimes this causes kind of needless confusion, as I've heard. I'm still a rookie here, so I don't always know everything. But from what I hear, this has been somewhat of a source of confusion over the years. So it helps kind of clear that up. It also, other requirements, it addresses those to be an actual school as opposed to a program with a school code assigned through the GADOE, operate under the authority of a nonprofit governing board. I'm sorry, it adds this language, just to clarify. Receive an accountability designation from the state like every other public school, and operate in accordance with the performance contract held by a school's nonprofit governing board and the charter school authorizer. So that's kind of all of section 1. I don't know if y'all want to do this one section at a time, or if you want to
Just go ahead and
just roll
proceed
through
forward,
it.
and then
That's fine with
we'll
me.
get questions at the end. Thank you.
All right. Section 2 prevents local school districts from prohibiting students from transferring to charter schools during the school year. So the way the existing code works includes provision that ensures students can transfer without penalty from locally approved charter school to a traditional public school. So you can go from a charter school mid-school year to a public school. This revision ensures the converse is true, where students can transfer without a penalty from a traditional public school to a charter school within the district. So all it is basically allowing the mirror to happen, based leveling the playing field. Nothing in this section amends or change any existing charter school enrollment or criteria or requirements, just to be very clear. So that's section 2. Section 3 ensures districts honor the spirit of the existing laws by funding locally approved charter schools based on local revenue. This bill does not change the I want to say this is very important. This bill does not change the statutory funding formula for locally approved charter schools. It does not do that. This bill does close a loophole to ensure funding is based on collected revenue as opposed to budgeted revenue. The language in this section included the timing and frequency of the true ups. So, and that was a little bit of a process. Originally, we had looked at it quarterly. Through some conversations that we've had, we've decided that we would go semi-annual. That is picked up here in 0831S. And outside of that, that's pretty much the bill in a nutshell.
So just so the committee's aware, since this entire version and LC number in front of you is a substitute, we will have to move on this. So just so you know the posture to adopt this, and then there is an amendment as well. So just so you understand the posture. So at this point, if there are questions for the author, Representative Maynard.
Thank you, Representative Thomas, for bringing this to us. My question is lines 118 through 120. I just want to know, what is the current penalty?
If you will, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Yes, sir. Representative Maynard, I'm Bonnie Holiday. I'm with the Georgia Charter Schools Association. There's no penalty for transfer. You're asking about the transfer provision. There's no penalty for transferring in the law. Some local districts have put into place local prohibitions that prevent charter schools from transferring from a traditional school to a charter school after the first day of school. And the problem is, as you all know on this committee, charter schools have long wait lists. We have over 17,000 kids on charter wait lists throughout the state. When a seat comes open in February, a parent wants to get it. But some local districts are saying, no, can't transfer in February. It's after the start of the school year. So it's a local prohibition. And this just ensures that there's some standardization across the state to ensure that doesn't happen, that the same enrollment without penalty provision that allows students to transfer from a charter to a traditional school should be in place to allow a student to transfer from a traditional school to a charter school. Of course, acknowledging that they would still transfer and the school would operate in accordance with all of the statutory charter school enrollment criteria that currently exist.
Thank you. Representative Wade.
I just want to clarify, since you guys came up with the decision to mirror the semi-annually, for clarification, I don't think it needs to be changed language-wise, but for folks to know, all public schools currently go through a mid-year adjustment and a final year. That would be the same semi-annual trigger, correct? So it would be the normal time that the normal public school, the governing body, would be looking at their own budgets to true up is kind of the pseudo accounting term. I appreciate the consideration on that. And then it allows a charter school that has questions to basically remind, hey, we're supposed to receive actual dollars, not necessarily budgeted. And acknowledging that means for the charter school, that number could be higher or lower depending on economic conditions, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wade. Vice Chairman Irwin, you are recognized for a motion.
Yes, and if it's the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like the motion do pass.
So there is a motion that House Bill 1215 LC 490831 by substitute do pass. Is there a second? There is a second. Now then, here comes the fun. We're in the point of discussion, and I will start by offering the Dubnik amendment. And if our legislative counsel is ready, he is going to provide such amendment and language, and then I will explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Working from LC 490831S on line 7, inserting after local revenue semicolon, the following language: to repeal certain reporting requirements for the Department of Audits and Accounts regarding state charter schools that offer virtual instruction.
Thank you. So
the first part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, so
Okay.
if you will, 1 second, since you're all wondering, the Georgia Department of Audits and Accounts brought before the Appropriations Chairman and myself as Secretary of Appropriations some language that was added that applies to 2 virtual charter academies, and the way that the preparation of an annual report and periodic comprehensive reports need to be made. And so their request was to remove language. I'm going to let him finish the rest of that, and then I'll explain.
So the amendment would continue to inserting after line 94 the following. Section 4, Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education is amended in Article 31, the Charter Schools Act of 1998, by repealing Code Section 20-2-2076 relating to annual report on state chartered special schools that offer virtual instruction requirements and publication on a website. Section 5, Said chapter is further amended in Article 31A relating to state charter schools by repealing Code Section 20-2-2093 relating to annual report on state charter schools that offer virtual instruction, minimum requirements, and publication on website. And finally, Mr. Chairman, on line 195, Section 4 would be redesignated Section 6, and on line 202, Section 5 would be redesignated Section 7.
Since you're all so familiar with OCGA 20-2-2093, we could just dispense with that. But in case you're not familiar, that requires the Department of Audits and Accounts to develop an annual report on state charter schools that offer virtual instruction. This report must contain specific data, including enrollment and attendance, academic growth, et cetera. In addition, every 4 years or the year before virtual charter school becomes eligible for renewal, Departments of Audits and Account is required to compile the data included in the annual reports and identify any long-term trends. However, the department states that the preparation of such a document should be the responsibility of management. The opportunity cost for the Department of Audits and Accounts to continue with this requirement is at least one performance audit or special examination per year. Special examination are those annual audits requests made by the House and Senate Appropriation Committees. And so these schools are in agreement and in support of the fact that the audit burden would go to them, because as the department states, and I'm happy to read the other 3 pages if anybody so needs, but that is an audit of simply producing and providing data. When I think of an audit, when I sit on a nonprofit board and we talk about an independent auditor auditing those results and making a declaration of finding, that's what I believe an audit to be. If we are spending taxpayer dollars to simply, and y'all, this is not a couple of hours. These 2 audits that we are waiving, we anticipate will reduce workload by 4,000 hours a year. So the schools are in favor of taking on that requirement. We believe this is a good fiscally minded move for the taxpayers of Georgia that will actually produce what I would call a true audit rather than just numbers. So we've put all that forward in the form of the Dubnik motion, the Dubnik amendment. Is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion on the Dubnik amendment? Representative Evans?
Thank you so much, Chairman. So so your amendment will allow that these virtual charter schools, that they will conduct their own audit, and the State Department of Audits doesn't have to do it, but they will still have to supply the audit. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We are striking language statutorily that requires the Department of Audits and Accounts to produce this audit, which I would argue audit's not even the right word. So it's still, the requirement is still there. It's just not, it's the burden is then on these schools, not a government entity or agency in particular.
Thank you. May I ask one more question? So
Yes, ma'am.
where does it say that these schools will provide that audit? Is that in this language he just gave us?
Yes, ma'am. It is. And I will trust, I hope you will trust me that it is indeed there, and that I would not be removing that type of stipulation.
Okay.
Fair enough. Thank you. Representative Maynard.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted Legislative Council to repeat Section 2 again, because I didn't get all of it.
Section 2 of my amendment? Yes. Okay.
So after line 194, which is following current Section 3 in the bill, there would be inserting 2 new sections, Section 4 and Section 5. Are you wanting those?
Hello? Okay. When you read the first amendment, then whatever the second one you said.
Okay.
So the-
So said chapter, which would be chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, is further amended in Article 31A, which is concerning state charter schools, relating to state charter schools, by repealing Code Section 20-2-2093, relating to annual report on state charter schools that offer virtual instruction, minimum requirements, and publication on website.
That was it. Thank you.
Representative Howard.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When will we get a copy of these amendments?
Well, I'm proposing this amendment as here. And so the amendment that our legislative council just read is up for this committee vote here in just a moment. But everything else that is in this LC version is what we're voting on as well. So
the substitute that we're looking at here.
there is a move and a second that this substitute do pass, and then we will also take a vote here in a moment that if the amendment were to be adopted, then this substitute as amended by the committee would then pass.
So all of the language that you were reading to us just a minute ago into the council, I'm just trying to put my arms around all that.
And I understand. And again, this was much cleaner until and I will own the mistake and I will take responsibility for the mistake. And I have that language here, but I'm not asking you in whole to trust what I'm telling you, but I am asking if you will grant the chairman leeway that what legislative council is presenting and what I'm asking you to vote on is fair and accurate and true, and that we are simply striking a code section for my amendment that statutorily requires an audit be done by the Georgia Department of Audits and Accounts. They have been consulted. I was reading from their language. So, Mr.
So
Chairman.
will we have it by the time it hits the House floor? Or?
Mr. Chairman. Absolutely. And Representative Thomas, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So this was something that hit very last minute. We tried to get it picked up in the LC 0831S. We tried to get it picked up. We just didn't have enough time to get it because it came in pretty last minute. But we have reviewed it. I do agree with the changes that you're trying to do. I mean, the state auditor is basically requesting change, noting that all the information currently being compiled for the performance audits, it's already publicly available. And the SCSC posts in-depth performance information on all the schools, including virtual schools, on its website annually. So, I mean, I'm in support of this change. It just came in last minute, so we wanted to pick it up. I feel like it's a very important addition to the.
And Representative Howard, the version that would be in rules would include the amendment and the language that we're voting on here. So it would be present there before it is, anywhere near. Should it make it out of rules, anywhere near the House floor? So yes, sir, it'll be tidied up. And again, I hope you'll accept my apologies for the way that we're having to package this and bundle this together today. It was not my intent, and it's certainly not the bill author's intent.
Yeah. And I trust my chairman, but it's just I was always taught to read what you're signing on to.
I understand, and I respect that.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
I understand.
Yes, sir. Representative Wade.
Just clarify, could legislative counsel give us an idea of when, for those members that want to specifically see that after this, should we continue on with the amendment and approve it, would you be able to get that to the members of this committee? Well, I don't want to put you on there, but that way to allow him, if he does have any additional feedback before it goes to rules, I think as a member of the committee, and I'm sure the chairman would be okay with us receiving a copy of that once it's complete in your office.
That would be this afternoon.
Thank you. Representative Carter, you're recognized online.
Thank you. And I was trying to follow you all online, and it is difficult if you don't have the bill. So my question, I hear you saying that it was a mistake and it was last minute. And we're still early in the session, so I'm trying to understand the rush to push this without allowing the members, all of the members, to thoroughly review the substitute and the amendments. Is this something that has to be done today?
I appreciate the question. And for everyone, the answer there is, by my last count, there are 53 bills before my committee. And I'll let that number speak for itself to answer the lady's question. I'm not rushing this or pushing this, but this is intended to be a simple cleanup language that has support. And so at this point in this time, there is a motion and a second on the Dubnik amendment. The Dubnik amendment is being called to question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There is a motion and a second that House Bill 1215 LC 490831 by substitute as amended by this committee do pass. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this bill moves on. Thank you, Representative Thomas, for being here.
Thank you and the committee for working with me on this bill. I appreciate it very much.
All right, so while Vice Chairman Irwin joins us at the table, I want to just remind the committee that where we are in this process. And so Representative Irwin has House Bill 1217. Again, if I can go back through, find my copy. This bill, if I recall correctly, passed unanimously out of subcommittee.
Correct.
And so Vice Chairman Irwin, I know you have, I'll just pause by saying I know how much you've worked on this, and I want to share publicly to the committee and to you how much I appreciate your due diligence. And I know you've worked very, very hard on this. And members of the committee, I want to let Representative Irwin go through this. And again, keep in mind that we have this bill and one more and a 1 o'clock stop to be mindful of your questions. There's only one word that has been changed from the version that has passed out. So we'll offer that today by substitute, but I'll turn it over to Representative Irwin and let him explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start out by saying that I'm very excited to present this bill before you today. This is a Student Technology Protection Act bill that we have definitely done a lot of research, a lot of work on. I want to try to transfer some of that knowledge from me to youth as we read through this bill. I would like to begin with a correction, Mr. Chairman. I told you that we had changed one word. We had changed on line 118. We went from, if you'll see there, willful to intentionally. And we did have one other change on line. It really begins on 242, but the changes were on 244. And I misspoke earlier to some sitting behind me there. We did make this change when we were in subcommittee on it. We talked about this not being waivable when we get to this Protection Act. So we were not allowing this to be waivable. So we made sure that we cleaned up those words correctly. And now it's non-waivable provisions. And you'll see that on 242. So let me begin by stating that and then go into some of my explanation here to you. First of all, I want to state that in today's society, it is very important that we protect our children. And it's not only from the physical attacks that can occur, but also the attacks that can occur on the internet, whether that is obscene material or phishing for information from a minor, those type of things. it has become apparent to me that we need to be leading not only the country, but the world on protecting our education systems and the devices that we hand the children. These devices that we give children to learn on can also be very dangerous to them and harmful. So let me begin with the fact that we did a bill, and you'll see here it was done in 2006. It was House Bill 1055. So I won't say cleanup here. This is truly catching up with the times. This is updating what we should have been looking at every single year because of the nature of technology. Technology is such a advancing science that is going on. So we cannot, I think, just sit back and say, we got it solved. We got the security issues that we need today. It needs to continually be looked at over and over and over. And the federal government in 2011, they updated what they call SIPA, which is the Children's Internet Protection Act. And they call it SIPA. And that is, if you're going to receive E-rate money, you have to do certain things, such as filters, firewalls, these type of things. What I want to point out is that was last updated by the federal government in 2011. Now, think about the technology changes we've had since 2011 in education. Let's just go back the last couple of years, the advanced online learning that has taken place, and we're calling it virtual learning. If you go back 5 or 6 years, I don't have the exact data, but I feel very confident in telling you we were doing quite a bit less virtual learning than what we're doing today, and brought on by the pandemic. But we're not doing anything different to make sure that we're securing those devices or that we are protecting any harm to our children. Let me hit a few high points of the bill for you. And then, Mr. Chairman, if that's good enough, I'll take the questions or handle it any way you want to, but I don't plan to read line for line. We did a pretty deep dive in subcommittee, those that were there line by line. But here, I think what we're doing is we're tapping into the expertise of the DOE in this area. So in other words, we're involving our Department of Education, their expertise and their ability to look at filters, to look at firewalls, and educate our individual school systems on what is out there that is successful to prevent obscene material from getting on these handheld devices or getting through their servers. And I want to point out too, we talked quite a bit about grade appropriate. So there is material that I want to point out, and we have a provision in this bill that if there's medical research that needs to take place that would be appropriate for a junior or senior, we allow that to take place. And we have a provision for allowing that research that would be considered not appropriate for a second or third grader, but would be appropriate for an 11th or 12th grader in that setting. I also want to point out that we got parent transparency here. We've got a means for our parents to notify their school that this has occurred. Remember, this virtual learning is taking place at home, a lot of it. And so the parents could see it when it was at home. We also have a notification opportunity. So remember, technology can do about anything we want it to do today. So we can notify the teacher when that student is off task. This is in here. That is very important for us to do also for the learning that takes place, not just the filtering. If they are learning something inappropriate, our school people need to be notified. Our parents need a process of notifying the school and the school dealing with it. And then, of course, always we're monitoring the harmful content with this bill and protecting our students from that harmful content. I was asked, and one other highlight, would this be an unfunded mandate to school systems? I will purchasing the best they can with their E-rate money. And they're having to do all the homework themselves to decide if that is really a good filter. We're engaging the DOE in trying to line all those stars up so that they have the best product, and we're not allowing this material to get through to our students. With that, Mr. Chairman, those are the highlights of the bill. And again, I'll tell you, I'm very excited with the opportunity to try to protect our students.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Irwin. We have one question, then I'll make some comments. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I love the bill, and I'm just surprised that some of this stuff was in the school system. So thank you for making sure that it stays out of the school system. And these are just clarity questions for me. So for lines 125 through 130, does this mean this will be in maybe like a student handbook or a parent handbook?
Correct. You know, at the beginning of the year, that's why we moved some of these dates, Representative, was so that systems would have the opportunity to develop their procedures and rules and then put it in the handbook, get it printed, and or as they are today, get them online for the students to have when school begins.
And for line 145, throughout the bill, it says local board of education, governing body, charter school. But this was my first time seeing superintendent. Was there any reason why this was the only place superintendent was placed?
I don't believe it's the only place. I'm gonna need to look to see. We also said or designee. Legislative Council, you and I had that discussion. Do you mind pointing that out to us?
Well, with respect to the initial question, if I may, just because that line, that subsection starting at line 144 deals with enforcement, then that would be a prerogative of a local school superintendent. I do believe there may be references to school superintendent and other places.
And if you will, maybe if we could take some other questions while you look through and review that, Representative Maynard, if that'd be acceptable to you.
Yes, and this concludes my questions.
Thank you. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you so much, Representative Irwin, for bringing this bill. I have heard some concerns about, once again, about the cost of the program for schools, and also I do want to understand, we're asking the DOE to come up with these filters, but in these programs, but it's possible that each school system could pick their own. Is that right? So, I mean, I'm wondering, like, how many different programs could there be out there? Like, if we have 181 school systems, could there be 181 filters? Or I'm just trying to, I was thinking that the DOE would narrow down the list, but it seems like maybe not. I don't know. I just want your feedback on that.
Good question, Representative Evans. I'll tell you that what we didn't want to do is handcuff the systems that wanted to go above and beyond more filtering or stronger, maybe a more expensive filters. But the DOE is going to be able to look at this, cover it, do the research.
Did anybody else lose the Zoom feed?
Yes, Chairman Nix, we did. We lost it.
So when
There we
we
go.
started giving all these new devices out to children for them to learn, you can imagine the number of those by machine costs, the costs, Representative Evans and Chairman, went way up to school systems on this. So it's definitely something that when I've been out there that I've seen that people want to do. They understand the importance of doing it. We just need to codify it and make sure that all of our systems are doing it and that we support them in doing that.
Representative Evans, is that briefly, please?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I just wanted to confirm if a student does their work on their personal devices, then they're on the school server, then they're under the filter. But if they're at home, they're not. Is that right?
Let's talk about that for a minute. And that's a very good question. I like to point these out, that these iPhones came out, I believe, somewhere close to 2008. Of course, the bill we're working off of here was 2006, even before these came out. We don't have a constitutional right to filter this device. However, any of the state-owned equipment that we give to children, we do have the constitutional right to make it grade appropriate. So you're pointing out something very good. It would only be those servers and the state-owned equipment that we allow the children to take home. And those would all have filters and firewalls on them. So if a student is at home and they are accessing the server at the school through their own device, that server will have firewall on it.
And so we're talking about devices, school issued devices, school owned servers, and school administered networks. So
Correct.
it would be from an access standpoint.
Correct.
Tell me they do use their a lot of people do use personal devices to do their schoolwork. So I just wanted to
So
understand
if
that.
that student was using a personal device to access Google, that is very different than if that student was using a personal device to access a school administered server or network to then look for materials. There would be filters in place at that point. So we are, again, school issued and owned devices, school controlled and administered networks and servers as well. So thank you. Representative Wade.
Two quick things. One, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion, but I want the bill author to remind the folks that weren't able to hear this in the subcommittee that we had. Would you speak briefly to the organizations that you reached out to, you worked with, and have shown support and are in favor of your, the chairman aptly put, your work and effort to ensure that all parties were engaged? Could you speak to that really quickly so all members can hear?
Thank you,
And
Representative
then at the
Wade.
appropriate time,
Definitely. We tried to vet this the best we could. We did not just want Washington protecting our children. We felt that we needed to protect our own children here in this state. And so we began working with the governor's office. We worked with DOE. We got involved with many of the education organizations such as Gale. We had some conversations with GAE. I could go on there. Some of them were much more in detail where they read different parts of the bill for me and made recommendations. So I felt this was a collaborative effort and a very friendly effort out of all the organizations that understand what we're trying to do here and protecting our children. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to take a minute to to highlight the value that someone like Representative Irwin brings with his background to a bill exactly like this. And I think Chairman Dubnik mentioned it a week or so ago. You like got superintendent, best one in the whole wide world or something. And so when we're having these discussions, regardless of the background or the party affiliation, I do trust our chairman to understand the language, to lead this committee. And I certainly trust someone like Representative Irwin to work on bills exactly like this for our children.
Thank you.
Amen.
Representative.
Thank you very much. Representative Carter for our last comment or question of the bill author online.
Oh, thank you. And absolutely, I appreciate this because technology is taking over our lives. But question, and I think you may have said something, but I don't know if it was clear. The cost, is this coming out federally funded, or will this come out of the state budget or the local district budget? And then what are the consequences for violations and how are teachers protected?
But we're not changing, Representative, any of the funding. They'll still fund it the way they have been funding it. And most systems use E-rate and a blend of splosh money to purchase filters and firewalls. So we did not, when I worked with Legislative Council, do anything that would jeopardize their ability to draw down E-rate money with this bill. So again, that the federal bill was SIPA that requires a lot of this. So my answer would be that we haven't changed it. What we've done is we're trying to make it better and then spread the knowledge throughout the entire state by involving our DOE. And then Representative Carter, give me your last question again. I can't recall that.
My apologies. I was asking about consequences for violations and how are teachers protected?
We got acceptable use policies that the DOE, that school systems are going to present to the DOE. And we did not change any structure for any teacher and punishment there. There's already a system in place that where they deal with if there's inappropriate behavior. So we did not put that inside this bill. The only part of the bill I can read to that would answer would be the fact that the DOE can withhold technology funds for a period in time till a system gets the products filtered and the proper firewalls in place. My intent there is not to take those funds away forever. That would be detrimental to the students. I think the idea would be to get them back into compliance and then get them the money and leave some ability of the DOE to make that decision, which if I understand it correctly, and I probably need to refer to a Legislative Council, but the DOE has that authority to do what I put in here already. We have just put it into words. If the DOE felt a system was not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they have an ability to hold back technology
and that's correct.
funds.
That is correct. That authority is there. So thank you to members of the committee. Representative Wade,
Thank
you're
you.
recognized for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend do pass.
We have a motion that House Bill 1217 LC 490843 by committee substitute do pass. Is there a second? There is a second. Representative Howard. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you, Vice Chairman Irwin. We appreciate your work on this very much, and that this motion carries and this bill will move on.
Thank you.
So members of the committee, we had Chairman Wade held a subcommittee meeting earlier this morning to hear House Bill 1295. That bill, there was a motion, a second, and procedure by the committee that it do pass and passed out of subcommittee. It's here in full committee now. You should have a copy of House Bill 1295, LC 490813 in your folder. If that is not there, now's the time for you to flail your arms. Chairman Corbett, I have taken great advisement from my peers here on this committee that you are what's standing between us and all those friendly people behind you departing for lunch. So the microphone is hot. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll jump right into the bill and why we are bringing this bill forward. As you know, we're having a issue with teachers leaving the profession. Within 5 years, 47% of our teachers are leaving. So what we're trying to address with this is some of the issues that we can hopefully, get these teachers the help they need, the professional development, and get them up to where they are high performing teachers and keep them in the system. And I will get into the bill right now. Section 1 of the bill removes the needs development rating from the group of performance evaluation ratings, which shall be reported to the local school systems to the Georgia Professional Standards Commission. And what that does, if a teacher receives 2 needs improvement ratings within 5 years, they can lose their certification, therefore losing their job. The current problem with that is that teachers, particularly new teachers, often need assistance to become better. But districts don't want to give the needs improvement, because it could cost them their job or their career. So by not doing that, district instead give a proficiency rating, and the teacher may never get the professional development that they need. They can still, get a needs improvement rating, but it will not count against their to the PSC that determines if they lose a certificate or not. With the meeting this morning, if that is satisfactory. All right. Section 2 of the bill, what are we doing? We're providing for a pilot program for an alternative personnel evaluation system. And it sets up the criteria for this. We'll have up to 10 schools. You have 10 schools, 1 local urban school system, 2 suburban, 3 rural school systems, at least in there. We can have up to 10. It can be a competitive process based on criteria to who gets in, but we're trying to let the department develop a different alternative for these 10 schools pilot system. And hopefully we'll get a report. Not hopefully, we will get a report in the bill. They have to give us a report every, once a year to the House Ed Committee, Senate Committee, and to the governor. And we can determine if there's something that we can do better on the way we're evaluating teachers now, that we can, if it works, we can implement statewide and hopefully be able to improve our teacher retention. Right now, this bill is supported by the Educators First Teachers Association, PAGE, GAE, Superintendent Woods, and the Georgia Department of Education are very supportive of this pilot program. And as a matter of fact, it's a legislative priority for Superintendent Woods with this pilot program. So that's all we're trying to do. We've had a lot of questions in subcommittee, but if more questions, I would entertain those. If not, I would ask for your favorable consideration.
Well, thank you, Chairman Corbett, and for members of the committee, some comments that I'll make from the subcommittee this morning. And Ms. Morgan, if I totally screwed this quote up, you wave your hands but I believe Ms. Morgan said earlier, and it's the very first thing that I wrote down, educators want to help educators. Yes. And that this bill gives opportunity for educators to be there to provide support. And I think Representative Laricchia, you made comment that we have to support those new teachers, and we have to be there to do what it takes to recruit and retain. And I believe that we heard from the department that being innovative is part of this pilot program, looking towards innovation in the way that we do things, that including teachers and their input would be part of this and would be valuable. And then to my question from subcommittee, for anybody else, lines 45 through 47, we have defined urban, suburban, and rural. So we're not creating anything new here. So With that, we'll open it up for questions of the bill author, Vice Chairman Irwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as you know, Chairman Corbett, and I signed on here with you in this bill, muchly needed in this state. Thank you for your efforts here. I will say to this that we need an effective evaluation program. Teaching and learning in the state of Georgia is changing, Chairman Corbett, and I think you picked up on that in this bill, that it is changing, not only with all the virtual, but teaching and learning for children is changing. And this will give us an opportunity to get an effective evaluation program of our teachers. And I see a benefit for that. So I thank you for bringing, and I know your past experience as a school board member played in well, as I can read through here. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Wade.
Just two comments, and I want to tell the sponsor I appreciate his work and effort, especially with working with the advocacy groups here. Thank you for clarifying that the administrators will still be able to recognize when a new teacher needs improvement, but being recognized as a needs improvement will allow for constructive criticism for them to have professional develop and get better, just like a coach would on the ball. It is not to diminish them in any way in their pursuit and their own excellence. So I'm very supportive of that. And I hope that in my understanding of the intent of the bill through the pilot program with department is that they will also come up with ideas to make sure that those leaders who are doing the TEKS or what might come from this, there'll be an opportunity to have really good training to do that effectively and with efficacy, right? To ensure that a teacher knows the difference, or a administrator knows the difference between needs improvement and then ineffective and not sufficient. So that will be a part of that pilot program to ensure that we get what Representative Irwin has stated. So with that, if there was an opportunity to do a motion, I'm available and ready.
That time is now. You're recognized for that motion.
All right, I make a motion do pass.
Representative Wade has made a motion this bill do pass. There's a second. There is a second by Vice Chairman Irwin. So the motion before the committee is House Bill 1295 LC 490813 do pass. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, Chairman Corbett. Motion carries. This bill passes. And at this point, we will stand adjourned.